Hey, this is Notser, and today we're taking a look at the Soviet battleships on the public test server. I can't share gameplay, but I can tease the stats, the armor, the models for all of you. We're going to start from tier 6, we're going to go all the way to tier 10. I don't have the earlier tier battleships to preview, but hopefully this is enough. So, first of all, we've got the tier 6 Soviet battleship, Izmail. Izmail is going to have a maximum health of, after you've installed the B hull, 55,900. Now look at the range of the guns. This is a tier 6 battleship, and it has a maximum firing range of 15.5 kilometers default. With the range mod, 17 kilometers. That's insane for a tier 6 battleship, in my opinion. That's a very shallow tier 6 battleship. That's on the level of the Julius Caesar on range. So it's clear that that's going to be at least a issue early on. I don't know if it'll carry through. Module upgrades, pretty typical, and I believe, yes. So the Soviet battleships are very much like every other battleship line. Only the Americans have that sort of weird slot 3 range instead of accuracy, and then slot, I believe, what is it? Slot 5 or slot 6, where you can equip accuracy module. This is just like every other battleship. Accuracy is in slot 3. Yeah, everything's cool there. The tier 6 doesn't have the ability to equip an aircraft, even though it does look like it could with a catapult launcher. Just haven't seen an upgrade path, A hull or B hull, that allows that. Hit points. We've got accuracy. Secondary guns are shallow, so you can't go like a secondary build on these guys. And can be competitive with the Germans. The Germans and the French will just outrange you. A range, it's pretty typical battleship stuff. 6 kilometer range. Its continuous is pretty disappointing at long range. Now, all these stats are subject to change, so I don't know that I want to necessarily talk about the AA itself. Maneuverability, 28 knots in the water at tier 6. That's great. We've got a rudder shift time of 12 seconds, which honestly is pretty impressive. You could go rudder shift, and you may or may not, yeah, you can make it feel closer to like a battle cruiser than a big heavy battleship. Concealment, very poor. Absolutely very poor. Armor-wise, it's got the excess armor at the waterline, which is great. This is something that punishes players and the AP choices, angling, but above the waterline, absolutely no armor. Very vulnerable to high explosive. These are very similar to the French in that regard. And it even looks like you could, wow. You could theoretically, if you get a good, clean AP bomb, you could get into the Citadel deck. The Citadel deck is very, very weak. Wow. Incredibly weak Citadel. So maybe Overpin is the way to go with the AP shell, AP dive bomb, if that's on the drop pattern, if you can drop on this guy effectively. I think you can. He just looks really flat, and there's a lot of flat deck space. So I'm gonna say that Izmail will be vulnerable to AP bombs. At tier 7, we have the sign-up. The maximum range of the guns at tier 7 is 16.1. That's a really big deal. But if we upgrade the ship, we could get the range up to 17.8. And the propulsion can go up from 27 to 29. Not really a giant upgrade, but at least it's available there. Same upgrades as the previous one. The difference is, oh, if I forgot to say this, every single Soviet battleship will have to use a charge-based damage control party system, at least until maybe they change it. And then a fighter, good. So it can equip a fighter at tier 7. That's very useful. You can see the catapult fighter here. Upgrades, typical upgrades. Yep, I'm not going to go through them once again. Same as before. This has been upgunned to 406. Oh, and the turret traverse is spiked to 30 seconds instead of 60 seconds to traverse. So it goes from being mandatory expert marksman to then at tier 7, you don't need to take it at all. Secondary range, it's getting a little better, but still not really there. A is alright. It's not impressive at all. I think that's going to be a Soviet weakness. Maneuverability, once again, the rudder is 12.9. So if you invest in rudder shift, it should get you down to almost 10 seconds. So very fast rudder. It may or may not be the play style that they choose to go. Oh yeah, I didn't choose the premium camo. Here's the premium camo for the Soviet battleship Ismail. I like that it sort of has that like fire-esque flame torch appearance. Looks like a hybrid between a Brit and maybe an American camo. The sign-up camo, let's take a look at that. This is the premium camo. Different color scheme. We've got some grays, blacks, whites, and blues. A little bit more dazzling, which is cool. I like that premium though. Not bad at all. It's got this red nose. It's got a really big nose considering its layout. 2 gun turrets in the front, 1 in the rear. This is sort of like the Nelson, but they placed a gun in the rear. I don't know how the gun angles are on the rear, but I imagine they might be pretty good, you know, because it's so far in the back. Concealment, 15 kilometers. So you will be able to conceal it fairly well, but this is a tier 7, so you can't get the concealment module. At tier 8, we have the Vladivostok. Oh yeah, let's look at the armor real quick, sorry. Once again, excess armor at the waterline with almost nothing above. This will be vulnerable to high explosive. The waterline will not. Seems to be a Soviet trait on multiple fronts. The Citadel itself, I think, let's just verify that the Citadel is pretty vulnerable. You know, it's not as vulnerable as the tier 7 was. Yeah, not quite as vulnerable. Alright, but there's still a lot of flat deck space that you can punish. Tier 8, mainline, Vladivostok. Vladivostok will be a traditional battleship. 2 gun turrets in the front, 1 in the rear. Giant nose. Holy crap. Geez. These are quite literal gonzos, I must say. I must say that. Module-wise, we can upgrade the survivability. It can go up to 73,000 hit points. The range of the guns, pretty mediocre. At tier 8, it's 17.3. But if we upgrade the range, we can get up to 19 kilometers. This can also equip a aircraft, but it can equip the special radar module. This surveillance radar is only effective against battleships and aircraft carriers, not cruisers. This is going to be a Russian trait. The duration is 40 seconds, so it should allow you to fire twice, maybe 3 times, depending on how much you have sustained damage. But the reload's pretty slow on the Russians. Seems like it's going to be the weak point of the Russians. Let me just verify the tier 6 and the tier 7. 33 seconds at tier 6 or tier 7, and then 33 seconds at tier 6. Alright, so surveillance radar, or an aircraft, which is nice. It is only a fighter, though, so keep that in mind. You can't use a scout aircraft to extend the range out. Module-wise, typical modules. They are so incredibly typical. I'm not even going to discuss it that much. Detection range, 15.5. Rudder shift, once again, it's not quite as fast as the others, but it's pretty fast. It's faster than the Americans, I think. Fast turret traverse once again. And one of the Russian traits, 41% chance fire. Okay. One of the Russian traits is that their guns will be incredibly accurate up to 15 kilometers, and then they will be very inaccurate after that. So they're supposed to be like close-in engagement. If we were to invest fully in concealment, I was curious to see how a Russian battleship would look. Let's get our commander set up for this as well. Since the turrets are so fast, I'm not going traverse. We'll go Superintendent for sure. Superintendent's probably going to be a must-take on the Russians between damage control, the heal, and the radar. It's just too good. You need it too much. All right. Let's take a look at the concealment. 12.5 with a max range of 19. So this feels very much like a cruiser, only it definitely doesn't have cruiser armor. It is very thick. Giant nose, though. Huge 32 millimeters. 50 and 40 millimeter deck in the center. And then the extra armor at the waterline. But it does go away near the nose. So there is a vulnerability there. Citadel, pretty well protected, but it is above water. Every Russian citadel is definitely above water. But I assume they're wanting to rely on that excess waterline. Oh god, is the citadel outside of the water? Yeah. How is this going to be balanced? A 370 millimeter citadel that requires the ship to be in close proximity to gain accuracy benefit? I don't know. I don't know. Secondary range, 5 kilometers. This is the 406s once again. Torpedo protection, 21%. So it's right around middle of the pack. It's mediocre at best. Turn radius, 950 meter. Alright, that looks good. The premium camouflage for the Vladivostok is the following. Ooh, that looks pretty cool. Very British. God, these colors are very British. You've got the greens, the whites, the tans, the blacks. Very, very, very British. But hey, it's great. I love this color scheme. I've always loved the way the British camo looks. So this looks great. I love all the different patterns here. The green and the black, plus the white. That looks good. I can barely tell a tan, but you get the idea. At tier 8 as well, this is the premium. This is the linen. Now this is going to be basically a Nelson at tier 8. It's got that giant nose. It's got the forward-facing guns. And note that the number 3 gun turret is also forward-facing. So it's going to play exactly like the Nelson. Not like the Izamo, thankfully, as far as number 3 gun turret is concerned. This is the premium camo for it. Ooh, it has like a little ramp. I wonder what they reclaim here. Maybe this was a submarine reclaiming tool. Or maybe plan to. That's cool, though. Alright. Let's look at the modules for the ship. It's a premium. It doesn't seem to have any unique module features. Yes, it can still equip the surface radar, which is good. Obviously, the heal and the damage control party. Same thing with concealment. Same thing with everything. Concealment is worse, though. This is a worse concealed ship than the Vladivostok. Is there any benefit to that? Better reload? Nope. Same reload. But it is forward-facing. Let's see the armor. Oh, yeah. It's got armor at the waterline, which is good. It's got that giant nose, but only the top half of the bow is 32 millimeters. The deck armor, it's slightly less than the Vladivostok, which is 50 at 45, which is all right. 32 everywhere else. Is the Citadel outside of the ship? It is outside the ship. God, how are these guys going to survive with the Citadel above the waterline and outside of the ship? I just don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Survivability, 63,000 life. Wow, there's almost no life on this. 63,000. What's the heal like? Is it a super heal? No, not really. It's a pretty typical heal. Okay. 22% armor, torpedo protection. 33-second reload on the main battery once again. Really fast turret traverse. AA, long range, pretty mediocre. Mid-range is actually pretty good, but yeah, long range is pretty mediocre. Maneuverability, it's got a smaller turn radius, so it should maneuver better than the Vladivostok, but it has worse concealment, so it's sort of a good trade-off there. Just slightly slower from the upgraded Vladivostok. But this will be the premium for the Russian battleships that will probably be introduced when the line itself is. So yeah, that's the linen. Let's move on to the tier 9. So it's the Soyuz. This is going to be, once again, 406 millimeter guns. The base AA protection isn't very impressive, but it looks like you can upgrade. Okay, so the upgraded hull drops 2 secondary guns. So I assume maybe this. Let's just equip it. 2 secondary gun turrets. Yeah, I don't know where it went. It's just sort of transformed. These gun turrets look similar to the Camo gun turrets. A default range, 17.6. The upgraded range, 19.4. It's going to be a really, really difficult battleship to be successful at least to me. It can equip a fighter or surveillance radar. Remember, this is the surveillance radar that can only reveal battleships and carriers. Upgrades, it is a tier 9 battleship, so it can equip the rate of fire module and all that stuff. Since it's 33 seconds, I think you go rate of fire. The turret traverse is so nice. Yeah, you don't lose anything. The traverse goes up to 34 seconds. Yeah, right. I wouldn't even notice that. But yeah, this is the default reload is 33 seconds, it seems, for the Russian battleships. Secondary range, 5 kilometers. Not really impressive at tier 9. So pretty shallow. AA itself, mid-range is pretty good. Long range is awful. So purely defensive. I think their AA will be even and not very good, even in that role. Speed, 28 knots. Okay. 950 meter turn radius, 14.9 rudder shift. 16.7 is the concealment right now. Let's just improve it. Don't need turret traverse because it's so fast. Because it's so fast, I assume they're always going to expect perfect angling against your biggest threat. And then concealment module. How concealed can we get it? Oh yeah, we don't have a camo either. Here's the premium camo. In that same vein that we were talking about, we've got the sort of the blue steel, black, white, and tan. A little bit of tan. They look good though. I like the camo pattern. Plus the red deck for the Russian. I like that. I think that looks cool. So the absolute maximum concealment that we could get on these battleships is 13.1 at tier 9. That's not too bad. But our Citadel is very vulnerable. It's right on the outside. Actually, no. The Citadel is slightly different here. Let's explore that. We're going to demount this. Let's look at the armor. Where's that Citadel? Okay, it's above water and up 20 millimeter. So, yeah. So it's 495 millimeters of armor before they break into the Citadel. It's just going to be a vulnerability of the Russian battleship line. Just going to be a vulnerability. The armor is... Oh, wow. This has much higher armor in the center of the ship. The bow and the stern still doesn't. But, man, you're going to have to aim really high if you want the AP shell to go on the ship, if it's angled anyway. Because this is extensive armor. Let's see the front Citadel. Front Citadel's okay. It is a giant nose, though. That's one of the traits of the Soviet battleships is their front nose is so big. It's going to be hard to successfully Citadel them because it has to go through so much of the ship. That was the Tier 9, though. Looks pretty interesting. Tier 10, we have the Kreml for the Kremlin. This one has the option to equip the 406 or the 457s. It has the charges as before. It can't equip an aircraft. When you equip the 457s, it just increases the time it takes to reload the guns. You still have the same amount of guns, so it's similar to the German battleships. I think it'll be highly customizable and intriguing because of that. The player base will be like, do I want 406, 457? It won't really be like the British, where it's like, 457 is just a downgrade. Well, let's look at the survivability. 108 hit points base. Survivability expert, you could go to 110. Most hit points in the game. pretty fascinating. Upgrades, same upgrades that are available, reload, all that stuff. Turret traverse, I assume it's going to be fast. Yes, it's fast, even on the 457s. Torpedo protection, mediocre to a little bit above. Very thick armor, but the Citadel is outside of the ship, so it will be punishable. It has extra armor at the waterline, but the top of the bow is still punishable. The Citadel itself extends over the water. Yeah, it's always vulnerable. The deck itself, there's a lot of excess deck, but how actual reasonable is the Citadel? Don't really think it is. It seems pretty well armored. The angle of fire looks pretty good. Because the deck looks so bare, it just sort of looks like an Iowa battleship with a little less over here and over here. I think the deck will probably be easier to bomb from the air. A defense, though, let's see how effective it is. Mid-range is insane. Long-range is pretty insane. That continuous damage, though, as a battleship, unbuffed, yeah, that's pretty good. Speed, 29.5 knots, alright. Rudder shift, 16.3, okay, it's getting slower. Concealment's getting worse as well. Let's just equip this, and then let's preview the premium camo. Don't need turret traverse because it is pretty quick. Superintendent is a must-take for the Russians because damage control has charges. Alright, concealment with camouflage will be 13.4 at tier 10. Alright. Let's look at the premium camo. Okay. So it's got the iron, black, white, and like sort of blue steel. Camo looks pretty cool. I like the red deck that highlights that as well. Always have liked the Russian patterns. So that was the Russian battleships. They look interesting. The reload is slower than any other battleship line in the game, but it's supposed to be highly accurate at short range to medium range, up to 15 kilometers. But as you can tell, their maximum gun range is the same, if not shallower, than some cruisers. So that's going to be their play. They're going to be competing with the cruisers on range, and they're hopefully going to maybe minimizing the number of ships that can engage them by using islands and moving forward in the right moment. I'm super excited to see these. Don't know when they'll be here. Sorry I couldn't share gameplay, but you know, wargaming, that's the way they work. Hope you enjoyed this. Leave in the comments what you think of all the Russian battleships that you've seen. The dispersion itself, it's in the same ballpark as the Japanese battleships, but I don't know how it works with that accuracy change at 15 kilometers. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.